Alright, so for the SDC's Game-A-Thon, I created some code for managing the shooting code, which I just posted online. I'm going to do a quick video on how to actually use it. So to use this, I'm going to go over to Unity, and inside of here I have a demo scene, which you're going to find under dan-gun/scenes shooting test. Now under here, it's pretty basic. There's just some cubes. The red ones explode when they're hit. They take about 10 shots to shoot them, or to trigger the explosion. They do react to physics. The green cubes just disappear after the first hit. Differences of how things get handled. The green ones might represent glass in a window or something, while this one represents like a vehicle or a tank or something. Okay, so inside of the game, you'll notice we have a player, which is just the camera, the main camera, and I added one script, the player. It has a speed, they can move, so I can hit play and then hit WASD, and those keys will allow me to move. Now at the moment I don't have anything like gravity or controls to keep the player on the ground set up. That's extra, that's not what I was working towards. The base thing that I wanted was the ability to move around and shoot at the objects, which I can do. So one shot destroys the green ones, but it takes 10 which I believe it's one more shot now. Oh no, one more shot. This shot will cause an explosion. Oh, there we go. Boom. Okay, and you can see in the inspector at the top, the one of the cubes just fell off. All right, because the explosion actually does generate enough force to actually move things around it. Now the explosions, just to let you know, that's a separate object. I just imported this. This is free on the Unity Asset Store, Detonator Explosion Framework. Get it? It's really incredible. The only thing I had to do was just drag in Detonator Base and play the scene. As soon as you create it, the explosion happens. Easy as that. Of course, I don't want that here for the rest of this demo, so I'm going to get rid of the explosion that clears my screen. All right. Now that I have this, the player has a couple objects attached. Machine gun, which is disabled at the moment, and simple cannon. They're the same thing, except machine gun does rapid fire. Okay, so simple cannon has a starting force of 500. This is how much forward force it's going to apply at the beginning. I have no gravity being applied to the shot, and the first time it hits something, it destroys itself, so you don't get any bounces or anything like that. Alright, but you do get the shot. You can add the prefab. So here's the shot. No, wrong one, that's the material. Here's the shot for the prefab. Just a simple sphere. Size is kind of small. The color is red. We have a sphere collider, mesh renderer, and a rigid body on it. Of course, no gravity. We could apply gravity and then increase the amount of force we apply, and then it's going to have more of an arc to it, so we could do that for things like shooting an arrow, for instance. But in this case, all we're doing is adding a small shot script. The only things this one knows is that it has damage and life. So damage is how much damage it's going to do on impact. The green ones don't care. Anything hits it, they blow up. The red ones care. They have 100 hit points. The shots by default do 10 points of damage, so 10 shots and the red ones blow up. Alright. Now we also have a target, two targets. We have the exploding target, which is done through just a simple object. It's a cube, has a mesh renderer, also has a rigid body. This one does use gravity. Next we have a script called explode on no health. This is paying attention to another script called health. Whenever the health gets low enough, gets down below 0, it'll trigger this explode on no health, which calls and creates the explosion detonator base. That was that object that created that really nice explosion that blew everything off the scene. So all it does is create it. Now it also destroys this object at the same time. Additionally, there's another object down here, another component that's called take damage target. So this is a target script that anything that a shot hits and finds out it's a target, it's going to call and let it hit, let it know that something hit it, a shot hit it. In this case, the take damage will look for the health script and reduce it by whatever the damage of the shot was. So that's how you get the entire chain reaction of enough hits will drop the health low enough, which will trigger the explosion to happen, which creates the explosion, which is dependent on a whole other series of things happening here. And you can add whatever explosion or interesting things you want to add yourself. All right. So we also have instant gone target. Now instant gone does not actually need health. I'm going to remove that one. Okay, what it does need is destroy on hit. Oh, it doesn't need this target as well. So this destroy on hit, this is a target object. So if a shot hits it, it triggers it and just blows it up. Anything. All right. So now I have those two objects in here. Let's take a quick look at the code. So I'm going to go into the player code to start this off with. So first we have the player. The only thing we know is the speed, 5. We can modify that, of course. In the start, we're taking the cursor, we're locking it to the center of the screen, and then we're making it invisible. This is going to prevent it, this will give us the ability to move the mouse around while we're playing the game and let it move what we're looking at. When we destroy the object, if it gets destroyed for any reason, we want to return that state of seeing the screen, or the cursor. It'll come back by default when you stop the game. Unity always returns it. But if you want to return it earlier, you can do it. And I just do this to make it easier to edit. I also have an escape state. So if I hit the escape key, it also disables that mouse locking. So in the update, the first thing that happens is we call look. Look is just getting the mouse information, the axis for the X and the Y, and then we're getting the delta of that. That's how far it's moved. Now we're going to take that delta and apply it to the rotation of the actual object this is attached to, the player. So in other words, this will go onto the camera. All right, so the camera will rotate with the mouse. Next, we have the keys to respond to W, A, S, and D. So this makes it move backward, forward, left, and right. So forward, if we need to, we're going to translate it. Now translate it will take whatever direction we're already facing and keep it going that direction. So forward, if my character or the camera is pointed to the left and I say to go forward, it will go to the left. If it's facing upside down, or if it's facing straight up and we say forward, it will go up. It's basically whatever is in front of it. Just like this will be whatever is directly behind it. So the speed or the direction is relative to the object by using translate. So we're saying go forward by this speed and apply this delta time to it so we smooth out the speed. And all of them just do that. Fairly basic. Okay, so now that we have the player, this has nothing to be able to shoot. So to shoot something, we need a gun. Now, I have something in here called an iGun interface. Which just to apply to objects, for most of the stuff I'm going to be using in Unity, I do use an interface in front of it. There are some good reasons to support that, one of which we'll get to see in this. Alright, but anyway, so we have the eye gun. Let me find one. Small cannon gun. Remember, machine gun and cannon gun are basically the same. Machine gun has rapid fire. Okay, so to begin with, we have starting force and then force. What's the difference between these two? Why do we have them both? Okay, well, the inspector inside of Unity only understands fields. That's my daughter in the background, Matilda, if you can hear her. All right, so Unity only understands fields. It cannot see properties. Interfaces, on the other hand, can only see properties. They don't work with fields. So we have to have them both in here, and then we connect them at the beginning by saying when it first starts up, the starting force will become the actual force. Same thing, the prefab, we're getting a shot prefab, and we're going to say that that is the prefab. Now on the update, this is for the small cannon, we're checking to see if the mouse button is down. Now down is that first instance where the previous frame the mouse button was up and this frame the mouse button is down. If the previous frame the mouse button was down, it will not trigger this. This will return false. It's only that first frame that the mouse button is down. All right, but assuming that's down and we do have a shot prefab, it's going to create an instance of it, and that instance will be in the exact same location as this object, and it will have the same rotation, so it's pointed the same direction. Then we're going to apply a relative force, which means keep in mind whatever direction it's facing. So when we say move forward times this force, it will move straight ahead, whichever way the gun was pointed. So this created a shot, put it in the scene, and aimed it and the shot is now moving in a particular direction. Let's take a quick look at the shot code. So here is the small shot. This is what I'm using by default. We may create other types of shots later on. They have the damage and they have shot life. And you'll also notice they have both the field form of that and we have the property form. Again, that's the Unity inspector versus interfaces. All right, and we use the start method to set both. So during the update, all we're doing is we're taking the shot life. Remember, anytime we create an object inside of Unity, it's going to stay there until we destroy it. So we can fire millions of shots during the base of a game, and if none of those are destroying themselves, our game's going to get sluggish and slow and be eating up lots and lots of memory. So if they've been in the game for too long, say 10 seconds or some other point in time that the designer can edit, we're going to destroy it. So we destroy the game object once its lifespan gets to 0. All right, then we're going to use another method called onCollisionEnter. This is triggered any time that an impact happens between one object and another. So if that happens, I just have some debugging messages in here so I can see what it hit in case there's some errors or some confusion as to what happened. Then I go through every target object in it. A shot component, one of these, what was it called? iShot. iShots will look for all of the targets. So when it hits something, it's going to see, is it a target? And there might actually be multiple target responders, different things that do different stuff for a target on the same object. So in this case, we're looking for iTarget, and we're calling a method on it called takeHit, and we're passing in the shot. Why are we passing in the shot? Because this stores information like damage and potentially other information we'll want to know later on. Okay, and then finally it destroys the shot. No matter what it hits, it's going to destroy it. But it does go ahead and update all the components that are all the targets to say that they've been hit. So next, let's take a look at the targets. Well, we have a couple targets in here. The first one is destroy on hit target. This is any time it gets hit by a shot. Doesn't matter how much strength it has, doesn't matter anything's unique or special about it, it destroys the game object. This is that green cube, the one that just disappeared as soon as it was hit. We also have another one called take damage on target. So take damage, you'll notice it's asking for iHealth, and it has a method in here called take hit. Take hit comes from the target. So we get the shot, we see that we've been hit, we say, oh, this object by its name has been hit. And as long as we have the health, we're going to take the hit points and subtract the amount of damage that the shot had. At the beginning, we're getting a component called health. So all of our health is being managed over in here in health, which inherits iHealth. Now this has something unique in it. So in this one, I'm responding a little bit differently to that issue between the inspector and interfaces. So in this one, I created a public float called HP, hit points, and set it to equal 50. Now, the actual property, I'm having it return that variable. I could have done this for the other ones, but it takes more coding, so I just skipped it. They only needed to know what they were at the beginning. Everything else can run through the interfaces. Okay, so to begin with, it'll return the hit points, but otherwise, it sets the new hit points. Now, it's doing something else here. This is a unique feature. If the hit points after it changes does not equal what they were before, so it did actually change, it's going to look for every component that's attached to the same object that happens to be an iHealth trigger. Any class that's inherited from iHealth trigger, not iHealth, but iHealth trigger. And it'll call a method on it called health changed, passing in the old hit points and the new hit points. Now that becomes important because on our red ones, we take damage, which applies to the health. The health, every time it changes, is then going to notify everything, which, for instance, we have this explode on no health. It is an iHealth trigger. It has the health changed method that expects old health and new health. It also has this explosion prefab. So with the explosion prefab, we're taking, that's where we generate our new explosion, that really nice looking one. So all we're checking to see is if our new health, we don't care about the old, if our new health is 0 or is less than 0, then we're going to create a new instance of that explosion. So here's the explosion prefab. We're going to set it the same position, and we're using quaternion identity for the rotation, which is just a default rotation. All right, and then of course we destroy this actual object. So explode on no health will create this explosion prefab, and we're destroying our prefab at the same time. All right, so that's the code for the game. So just going a quick one over on the actual visuals of this. Here we have the player where we've attached the actual player script. This moves them around. Here's their weapons, which is just adding the small cannon gun script, or the machine gun script, in which in this one it has the time between each shot. And then we have the exploding target, which applies health. It applies take damage on target, so when it gets hit, it reduces the health. And then the health is going to notify explode on no health to trigger by telling it every time it gets an update. And so when it gets to 0, it creates a new instance of the detonator base. And then the other one is Instant Gone. Instant Gone doesn't actually need health. Instant Gone doesn't need the take damage. All it needs is the destroy on target hit, which if I check, I believe this one only had the destroy on target hit. I'm going to apply the changes so it goes back to the prefab. Now I'm going to show you one more quick thing before I take off on this, so all of us can interact the same way with our code. So this is my project folder, Dan-Gun. This everyone can download on their own and add if they want this to work by default. Add it first and then add mine. And the explosion will already be wired up. Okay, but in this case, I'm going to go to Dan-Gun, right click on it and say export package. So with the export package, it adds all of these materials. Now you'll also notice it says include dependencies. So what does that mean? Well, if I minimize Dan-Gun, you'll also see it's trying to get the detonator base prefab. So in here, underneath this, you can see there's actually a lot of prefabs, but it only grabbed detonator base. Why? Because this cube is referring to detonator base. It actually figures out all the different things that are related and interconnected that you need to have available in order for this code to work. That's incredibly useful. But I don't want all this extra code following me. In fact, it's someone else's code, so I actually don't feel right about including it in this project to begin with, especially when we can add anything else in place of the explosion and it'll still work. Okay, so in this one, export package. I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to get rid of the detonator explosion framework so it doesn't include any of this. You'll have to include it by default yourself if you want to get it, but I highly recommend it. It's awesome. Then you click export, find the folder for it. I'm just adding it to a packages folder and basic shooter, and that's where you're getting the basic shooter script that you can download from here, which let me refresh the page, and that should be up. Right there. So there's the Dropbox script to it, so anyone can now download this object for themselves and get the package. All right, and then just run it and it's in your project. Good luck.